All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Florida Hockey Bros. My name is David. I'm joined by my brother Dario on the other side of the screen there, and boy, oh boy, do we have a do we have some fire today? Leon Draisaitl extension had just been announced um, all over all over social media. Looks like it's an 8-year deal, Dario, for $14 million AAV, and Pierre LeBron reported that it's a full no non-movable clause on it, so pretty much has all the power there. Let's start there. We're also gonna on the second half of the show, guys. We're gonna do our division standings and our conference finals predictions, Stanley Cup winner prediction, as we did last year. So that should be fun and controversial as usual. But since this news just broke, Dario, let's start there. Um, I've been kind of half joking the last couple of weeks that Draisaitl's overrated, which half joking, but obviously he's a great player. He's a good playoff performer. One of the best in the league right now, even though the finals he kind of disappeared, other than that elbow to Barkov's face. But I thought these guys were gonna take a pay cut. Word was that they were gonna get together and try to build something so they can make a run. Um, I do think McDavid is gonna extend as well in a year or two, but that's a lot of money, and that's a lot of commitment to a 29-year-old. I think he's 29, 30.
He's turning 29 in
He's
October.
turning 29. Yeah. So that those last 2 years, the contract might be a little ugly. He is a physical player, so those guys tend to slow down once they get past 34, 35. Um, but yeah, what's your initial reaction to this? I know we talked about it and you mentioned that it would be around 14 million, and that's what it came out to be. But what does this mean for, say, Bouchard?
No, I mean it's what had been reported. Basically, I think the hope for the Oilers and fans was that he might take in the 13s. It's kind of a pay cut. I think being 14 flat, it's like you could argue him, quote unquote, taking a pay cut. Matthews is making 13.25, so you can argue he's a better player and signing long term. I think the issue is just the cap. I know the cap's going to go up, but for like the next 4 years or 5 years, I think Mike Davis going to sign for more than that. Obviously, how much is a question, and is he going to want to take a pay cut or not? It's a question. The way like Crosby did or whatever. But I think Bouchard too. He probably wants 10 or above. So yeah, we talked about it before. It's 40 mil between just three players. Plus you have Darnell Nurse on the books, and you have to replace Ekholm eventually in a couple of years. And resign Skinner. So the depth is going to be an issue, I think, in the next 3 to 4 years at least, because the cap is going to go up, but not by percentages that will be would be good. I mean, by the time McDavis extension kicks in, they're going to have like 47, 48% of their cap locked up on four players. And even when Nurse comes off the books, you have to replace Ekholm and all the whole defensive core. So yeah, that's the tricky part, right? You're not going to lose these guys. You have to pay them. You have to keep them. It would be insanity to like trade him at this point, no matter what you say. It's just the front office is in a tough spot when you draft these very high end, like kind of a historic pay scorers. And you're stuck paying them because they want to get paid. I mean, I had a Leafs fan that I interacted with yesterday kind of say something that we know, but it was kind of refreshing to hear from them saying, listen, guys in these markets don't want to take a pay cut for, if there's the tax reasons, there's the family has to go through a lot. They have to do a lot for the team. There's so much pressure, the weather, there's all these conditions. So when guys are here and they're performing well, they want their money at the very least, right? And that's the one perk that they can ask for. And maybe the no trade clause, I guess. Whereas in other markets, maybe it's the anonymity, maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the taxes. And it isn't just the players, it's the family as well, which is I can totally get it. And like what Marner
Yeah,
has gone through this summer, it's not fun for anybody. So anyway, it's I get it. I just think that some people are going to underplay the difficulty with the cap and how
yeah.
much money this is.
I think from there's always different perspectives. So from the player's perspective, of course, I understand, and he deserves to get paid that much. But from a team perspective, it's a tough one. Yes, you have to extend him. Can't let go of a top 5 player in the league. Um, because your success sort of depends on him playing well with McDavid in the playoffs. But yeah, from a team perspective or the GM, it's just not a great deal, especially with a no clause, no movable clause, where if he has a drop off, you're kind of stuck with that. And here's where I kind of stand on the whole pay cut thing. It's any little amount matters. So him taking a 250,000 a year pay cut matters. That's huge for the cap. Um, it could be the difference between extending a young guy next year or whatever. And the other thing that I don't really fully understand when it comes to the direction that the Oilers are going to is you're saying this is it, right? This is your core. They're gonna extend Bouchard for 11 mil or 10, whatever the case may be. And you're essentially saying this is it, this is what we have. And then when it's time to replace Nurse, or if you're moving on from Evander Kane, who are you going to bring in? Are you going to start bringing in these guys like Cito does? These older veterans that are trying to just win a cup and hope to get lucky, like Oposo did. But those guys they don't really come in and take over. They're sort of just pieces to fill in some depth and give you some playoff experience to get to the finals again. I think that the fact that they got to the finals just yesterday, last year, and they came back from 3-0 down is giving sort of a false narrative about what the Oilers are really going to be like. Um, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year during that run, those runs that they had after the rough start to the season. I think they're sort of in between. I can see Colorado passing them. I can see Dallas being better in the playoffs if it comes to that matchup. I just don't. I think you have to look at the team and you have to be honest with yourself if you're that dumbass Bowman, and realize that it's not just that simple. You have to have a vision, and you have to have a bunch of young guys coming up, but you just lost two in Broberg and Holloway. So I don't really. I think they might be stuck. They
Well,
might be
that's
stuck.
that's the part that people don't project, which is right now they're fortunate to have Nugent Hopkins and Hyman on favorable
But they're
contracts.
not. They're not young either.
No, they're
They're in their
not. But
thirties.
but but the reason why they have a semblance of depth is that those guys are actually making probably less money than they would have been making if they were getting their
Hyman
contracts
for sure.
now,
Yeah.
right? Hyman will be making more money now, and so once you have to replace those guys in just a few years, you're gonna have to pay much higher. Yeah, you might have the occasional player taking a pay cut, but we're talking about really the core of your top six, as an example, or your defense, your top four. You're gonna have to pay a few guys to be able to keep that going. Generationally speaking, in terms of your timeline, that's the issue of not keeping Broberg and Holloway. Overpaying for them now is incredibly difficult, but that could have saved you money long term if they work out. Now you don't have those guys. What if Savoy or whoever comes in and all of a sudden takes off? They're going to want to get their money too, right? And if not, they're going to get oversheeted or look elsewhere or whatever. And that's the kind of the churn that you can kind of get into, which is, okay, you're locked up. Look at the Leafs, right? You're locked up with this money, and what can you gain free agency, right? It's like older guys that can take a pay cut, or guys that you have to give extra years for. The Oilers haven't been in that position for a little bit because they have some of these guys locked up in good in quote unquote good contracts, even though they've given out some really bad ones like Nurse and stuff. But yeah, I mean, they'll have some money. They'll be able to sort of make some moves, but at the end of the day, free agency is expensive, especially for top guys when you're replacing Kane, when you're replacing some of these guys. And that's going to be the issue for them in 2 to 3 years. All these things are going to come quickly and at once. Ekholm, replacing him, replacing Kane, replacing, and then you have Hyman and your Hopkins contracts eventually coming off. And how are you going to replace all of that talent, and how much money are you going to have available to be able to do that? How much do you give Skinner? What young guys do you need to extend? So this isn't going to change. And this is a lot of money. These 3 guys are going to get paid. I don't know if McDavid will take a discount, maybe take it 15 instead of 16, but it's sounding like the four of them wanted to get about 40 mil. So
Yeah.
it's looking like closer to 16 for McDavid. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, I do think McDavid would take a pay cut if he needed to, and I don't think he's gonna leave. He's gonna get that extra year from them. That alone is gonna be huge, and I think he wants to win there just to prove that point. I do think he's a competitor. He's a great, beyond being a great hockey player, he has a strong personality, and he really wants to win.
I mean, this narrative of McDavid leaving, I think, is silly. I'm just going to say that on record. I really think about his situation playing with Draisaitl, the team that he's familiar with, where he has a lot of leverage, and they're bringing guys that can cater to him. It's a market that worships him.
Yeah,
What is
it's
he
not
going to
that
do?
simple.
Is he going to go to Toronto's going to pay him 60 mil?
It's like Austin Matthews, McDavid, and nobody.
once Marta gets extended, which will definitely happen, are you going to be able to pay him? So again, fans come up with those. Oh, Marta gets traded and bring McDavid in. It's like he's going to trade Matthews for Draisaitl. I don't know. That's that like, even if you want to be generous, that's like a lateral move, and at least the Oilers have been deeper in the playoffs than the Leafs have. So anyway, I think this idea that he might come to Toronto, it's a little bit out there. It's kind of wishful thinking. Things will have to really, really go awry this year in Edmonton. Things will have to fall apart, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, and the other question with this that comes with this is what are other guys going to sign for now? Does that even impact Swayman? You might say no because he's a goaltender, but it kind of does. What does that do for Raymond, who supposedly didn't want to extend for what he was offered, for the dollar amount that he was offered? Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but supposedly they're not close, even though they're working on the contract extension. So what does that mean now for guys next year? What about Bennett and Verhage for the Panthers?
Yeah, but I think in some ways those guys are a little bit easier to replace than some of these high end guys that you're really relying on. I'm not saying losing Bennett's not a loss, but we're also talking about a guy who's currently making $4 million or whatever. So it's it's a bit of a difference. They're definitely going to want to get paid more. I mean, the Panthers are not going to keep both of those guys. There's no way. But
no.
But yeah, I think that's just where we are. It's going to get really fascinating with which players are going to want max dollar and which players are going to want to just. I mean, honestly, look at Seth Jarvis. Look at some of these guys getting paid money that when you look at their entirety of their numbers and their play and how young they are, it's a really good contract. I know people were laughing about the Matty Beniers thing, and some people didn't know who he was. But I was like, dude's 21, two-way player. Center, was great as a rookie, just had a down year, which happens to most people in the sophomore year. But in like 2-3 years, that contract's going to look legit because that guy is the kind of player that in the playoffs can be successful playing two ways. And Jarvis and Aho and those guys also are the kinds of guys that in the playoffs can win. So, and they're getting paid like almost half of Draisaitl, So
Yeah.
that's the difference. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You can tell me if you want rather have Draisaitl than Aho and Jarvis together. I mean, well, time will tell, but I don't know that would be a good deal.
Yeah, it's just a lot of money for one player, and I don't have the solution. I think that they did what they had to do, and it was the right thing to do for the Oilers. And
yeah, Oilers fans rejoice. You're keeping him. Like,
but
it's a great
I don't
player.
think it would have been the end of the world if you took a bit of a pay cut, $1 million off per year or something.
You've got a window now, but it's going to get a little bit tougher, especially as these guys get older. So
and that's the last. I think the last thing we can talk about, this winning window for them is it's not that long, and I know it's always there as long as McDavid is there, but this is not the NBA where a superstar or two is going to carry your franchise to multiple championships. This isn't Shaq and Kobe. You need those other guys there, so that's the part that I'm most curious about. They're in win now mode with all the older guys they brought in. They're the oldest team in the league. Yes, I know Corey Perry's used that a lot, but how are you going to go about this? Once you extend McDavid, regardless of the cap going up, that by itself is going to fill in whatever the cap increase is So you're not gonna be in a situation just like you are now. That's what I think. That's the biggest, I think, misunderstanding in all these contracts. Yes, the cap goes up, and like you mentioned, players are gonna want to get paid more as the cap goes up. So that percentage of the cap is always gonna be the same. If you're 10% of the cap, you're 10% of the cap. It doesn't matter if it's 10 million, 14 million. So, if he looks at it that way as a player and you're like, hey, I'm willing to do this and take off, 500K, but you get your 8 years, you get the dollar amount that supposedly you wanted. And on top of that, they can't trade you unless you agree to it. Um, that's just tough. That's just tough. But if
Yeah,
Nylander's making 11.5, then what can you say?
exactly. It's crazy in those markets, man. Yeah, it's a difference. It's the last video we did. I talked about the difference in how teams are run and the way that they spend the cap and how the cap parity has made it more difficult to win with just superstars and loading up with stars and prioritizing that versus trying to build a winner in a team. And you look at the recent winners and that's more of the model. And Crosby taking a pay cut did make a difference. They were able to have deeper teams and Tampa, and look at Tampa now, not as deep. And all of a sudden they can win. And so it isn't just the superstars that will get you through. So yeah, it's and again, they can break through 1 year. I'm not saying McDavid can win a cup. I'm just saying it's going to be harder than people think. And I think people also, and we can get now into maybe the standings or the rankings and the predictions, but people always underestimate how there are other teams that also get better, man. So, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
my team is better now, or
Yeah.
whatever, or just as good, but no one else is better. It's kind of silly.
Well, and it's not that easy to replicate the same thing over and over. Getting to the finals and then doing it again the next year and winning it what the Panthers just did is extremely hard, man. And the Panthers
Well, the
actually,
Panthers went through a run that they shouldn't have done. So the
yeah,
first year was like, I still can't explain it. It's the weirdest thing. It's
it's one
like
of the flukiest shit
the
ever.
Bruins, the Bruins. I mean, the Bruins choked. I mean, I'm sorry, they
The
kind of
Bruins
did.
choked, and the Panthers
The
got a ton of
Leafs were a
breaks.
terrible matchup. The
Yeah,
Leafs just like do not like
yeah. The Panthers
physicality.
got every break in that Carolina
And
series, every break.
Carolina was like, you could argue Carolina was better in most of those games. And so that's one thing. And then they got destroyed in Vegas because by the time they got there, it was obvious that they didn't belong there. And then the other part is the second year they got deeper, and also the matchups. The Bruins were not as deep. Tampa was in the downward trajectory. The Panthers were able to keep the same team together and the core and really build on it. And then the Rangers were a team that had flaws at 5-5, which is the Panthers matchup. It's perfect for the Panthers because that's their strength. And then the Oilers, it could have gone either way, but ultimately the Panthers come through. So I don't. Again, we'll get into the standings, but like doing this stuff back to back it's difficult, man. But
Well,
yeah,
the last thing I'll say about the Oilers and how they're gonna be, you know, um, so tight with the cap is that you're not, if this was the Metro division, I would say fine, they're gonna win. They're gonna win the division. They're gonna get to the conference finals, and now they have a good shot because any good team can win a series, but they're gonna have to get through Golden Knights or Canucks unless they win the division, which I don't think they will. Spoiler alert. And then you have to battle it out against the Avalanche or Dallas, who's going to be improved and a year older and more experienced, or even the Predators. Who knows? So yeah, it's going to be tough. All right. With that being said, let's get into the standings. Dariel, let's start here with the West and work our way down to the Atlantic, as that would be that's going to be controversial there. Um, so I guess I'll start. I'll start with let's go ahead and start with the Pacific. Speaking of the Oilers, and go. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go from 8-1 in the division. Um, However you want to do it, but I think that's the best way to go about it. And you want me to get going first, or you want to go first?
no. You can do the ridiculous. You can embarrass us first, and then I'll clean it up. You're gonna have the Panthers winning every division, even though they're only playing one.
All right. Well, in the Pacific, number 8 is easy. The San Jose Sharks. They stink. I have no idea what they're doing. Negative 150 goal differential last year. They don't have anything good. Couple of young guys. I would say they were probably better last year. Um, Kind of a waste there, but that's an easy one. At number seven, I actually have the Calgary Flames. Um, that's because I think the Ducks and the Kraken are gonna take a bit of a step up. Um, for me, I don't think that's out of the question. I can't see much improvement there unless Huberdeau becomes this amazing player again, which he won't be. Um, so that's number seven for me, the Calgary Flames. At number six, I have the Ducks. I think they just move up a spot. Um, Nothing crazy. A lot of young guys. They'll be exciting. They might beat a couple of good teams here and there, but ultimately, I think their lack of experience and age will show. So I have them there at number six. Then I have the Kraken at number five, missing the playoffs. Actually, okay. I have the Kings at number five, missing the playoffs. Um, I think the drop off is just gonna be too much for them. Very old. I don't know what they're doing. Um, yeah, that team needs to rebuild and fast. I should have done it probably a year ago or two. And then I do have the Seattle Kraken sneaking in on one of the wild cards. I thought about having. I thought that there would be two wild cards teams from the same division from the Central, but I kind of backtrack on that, so I'm not too sold on the Blues. But I have the Seattle Kraken making the playoffs as the last wild card in the West, and on the Pacific at number four. And then I have at number three, I have the Canucks. Um, which is kind of weird because I wanted to have them at number two and have the Oilers at number three, but I don't think the Oilers are going to drop off that much. And then at number two, I have the Oilers, and then at number one, I have the Golden Knights winning the division and sort of going back to the powerhouse that they were. I know they lost some players. I still think that they're very good. They're well coached. I don't think they're going to be as kind of meh as they were last year. But yeah, that's my 1 through 8. So what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, a couple of terrible picks.
Terrible.
Yeah, there's a couple terrible picks in terms of the order. Yeah, I mean the Sharks number 8, obvious. I have the Ducks at number 7 still.
All right, it's the same as last year.
Flames are 6. I think the Flames roster it's decent. Like not compared to how people think of them, they're not a playoff team by any means. They might want to tank, so that could drop them. But I see them as 6. I really struggle with this.
Yeah, that division was the toughest for me.
I have to say, I was looking at rosters yesterday because I knew we were going to do this, and I'm going to go and backtrack with the Kraken and say they finished 5th. I don't think that they make the playoffs. I don't think they have the roster yet. I don't think they have the scoring yet to get there. I think they'll be a little bit better this year in terms of goal differential, but they were really good defensively last year and still couldn't crack through. I don't know if they can be that good again defensively. That's hard to do and sustain. So I have them at 5. I think the Kings, as annoying as they are, the roster is still pretty solid, and now they don't have.
Wow, so you have them making the playoffs?
Yeah, unfortunately. Which if they play the Oilers again, I swear to God, in the playoffs. But I have them. The Kings are just like they just need to let go. But they have a good roster, and I think they're going to have one last hurrah. And they're solid defensively. I think the goaltending is the biggest issue, but I still think that they're better than the Kraken. So I have them over an 82-game sample 4th. 3rd, I have the Golden Knights. I think that's kind of where they fit. They have lost some people. They tend to have injuries.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
starting. Yeah, kind of on a downward trend. I see what you're saying. I actually think Vegas can surprise more in the playoffs if they're healthy.
Yeah.
But in terms of regular season, I think they'll get in just above the wild card probably. So I have them 3rd, and then I have the Canucks 2nd, and I do have the Oilers winning the division. I think they'll come back. They'll come back with the vengeance, trying to be more consistent. And I think regular season wise, they have enough skill and depth to win. And I'm just not sold on the Canucks. I think they kind of overachieved just a little bit last year. I'm not saying they're not a playoff team or a good team or a contender, but
yeah.
Number 2, I don't think it's bad for the division, so I'm flipping them from last year. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's why I have the Canucks at third. It looks like Demko has serious issues with his knee. I think it is. Um, he's not recuperating as expected. I don't think he's gonna play to start
It's
the
a
season.
weird injury. It's supposedly the back of his knee. It's like an
Mm,
injury that like doctors haven't seen in like 50 years or whatever. It's like a
yeah,
really rare condition that apparently it's like you can't really treat it, and it's like they don't know if it can get better. So it would be kind of
yeah,
tricky.
yeah. And I think their backup is injured now. I forgot his name. Askalov, whatever his
She
name is.
loves, man.
Chilos, there you go. Askarov. I was thinking of the guy. Um, yeah, I think they're going to be in trouble there in the goaltending department. I think that's huge. Look at New Jersey last year. I think that matters a lot. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the Central. This is kind of tricky. There's a lot of like whatever ish teams here, other than the top four, um, which is going to be the same as last year, just rearrange. But I still have the, I actually have the, this is the toughest part because out of those four bottom teams, so it'll be the Blues, the Wild, Utah, and the Blackhawks. I wanted to put the Blackhawks higher, because I said that they were gonna be improved this year or whatever, but to me they're still number 8 in that division. I think that division is just kind of tough. I don't see them climbing over Utah. I think Utah's gonna stay at number 7 as well. I also have the Wild and the Blues where they finished last year, number 6 and 5. I don't think either team has enough to sneak into the wild card. It's very competitive. Um, and then this is where it kind of gets interesting. I have the Jets as the other wild card, so at number 4 there, which makes sense to me. I do think they're going to drop off a bit. They're very defensive, but they're struggling to score. Um, they really struggled in that division last year to score. So I believe they were number 5 in goal score. So I have them on number 4. I have I have the Dallas Stars at number 3, and that's only because I have Colorado and the Predators as
Wow.
1 and 2. Yeah, I have Colorado as number 1. I think Colorado is gonna come back with a vengeance. I think they've had a couple of seasons where they're not happy. You can see that there was something going on there in the locker room with some of the guys, and all the stuff that came out. But I have, I don't think it's a hot take. I have Colorado winning the division, and I do have the Predators. I think what's going to happen with the Predators, and the reason why I don't think they're going to be as bad as you think, is they're just going to be really good on the power play, and they're kind of sort of like the Rangers, and that wins you a lot of regular season games. Anytime your power play is good, you're going to win most nights that the game is close because your power play is going to be better than the other team. So I think they're going to finish second, and then I have the Stars finishing third by default. But it might be, they might be off by like 1 point. It might be like 110, 109, 108. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll go back to the power play comment you made on Nashville, but yeah, I have the Blackhawks last. By the way, Jesse Blake from the Steve Dangle podcast network has been doing the same thing, and he had the Blackhawks like 4th or 5th in the
Yeah,
division.
I don't think they'll improve that much.
I think he's just.
They,
I think he's. I think he's trolling. He's just trying to.
yeah, they might score a few more goals,
He's trying
but
to have like. There's
they're
no
still
way.
leaky.
I'm sorry. I don't. I think that they're 8th. I think I am down on the Blues. I have them 7th.
Okay.
I am a little bit down on the Wild because of the
Yeah.
cap situation. I have them 6.
So you have Utah
Um,
5.
and this is where it gets tricky. I have
Uh-oh.
the Jets at 5. I have the
So they're
Jets
missing the playoffs,
dropping. Could be missing, could be a wild card depending on
right?
how the other division ends. But I think the Jets rely a ton on defense and goaltending. Hellebuck is older.
He is
They didn't
older.
look good in the playoffs at all. That team is weird, man. A lot of those guys, I just don't know. And you know, it's hard for them to get guys in. I don't know. I have this weird feeling that the Jets are going to drop. So yeah, I'm gonna take a chance and say that the Jets might struggle. They did finish the season on an 8-game winning streak last year to finish where they finished, so might not be able to do that this year. Otherwise, they would have finished behind Colorado. So yeah, I have them 5th, and then yeah, this is my one wild pick. It's Utah in fourth place, making the playoffs. Every year, there's
Wow.
usually one team that surprises people. The Devils went from stinking to all of a sudden being almost a contender. At some point, teams are gonna move up. I mean, it's just the nature. We keep thinking of the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Last year
yeah,
was
yeah.
this. So anyway, I have Utah. I'm high on them. I would like to see them come through. They had a strong start to the season last year. They just kind of dropped off. I think, but it was because of the drama around the Coyotes. And then third, I have the Predators, and I actually have Colorado second and Dallas first in the regular season. I
Okay.
think Colorado is not as deep, and their goaltending is a little bit shaky, and I think that worked against them in the regular season. And the Dallas defense didn't necessarily get better, but they have a deep team. Their young guys are coming up, getting better and better. So I have Dallas being more consistent. So I would say about the Predators and the power play. I mean, I'm still giving them respect by finishing third because I just cannot pick. I think the rest of the teams are not great on that division. But I don't buy that their power play is all of a sudden going to be better. They were 16th in power play last season, I think.
So you don't think Stamkos is gonna
Stamkos got
bury 20
dead.
goals on the PP?
The reason the power play was so excellent for Tampa for so many years, people forget they're a power play monster. They're not like a one-off. It's because of Hetman and Kucherov and how they feed the people. And Stamkos just there shooting one-timers. I think that they can try to do that in Nashville. I don't think they'll have as easy of a time. That it's not the same power play, and he's also older. And he and Masterso are going to be really big liabilities. They got paid. They have both won. Yes, you could see that they want to win, but they don't have to. Um, I just don't buy the hype with Nashville. I think they're old. I think they're a little bit overrated. I think Roman Josie is overrated. So again, they can get points. I'm not saying they won't, but
Well,
I'm just not sold on them, bro.
even if Josie's overrated, he's still a very good defenseman.
Yeah, but he's also getting older, and again, I don't see their power play magically becoming Tampa's power play just because Stamkos went there.
I don't think they will, but I think that they can improve. 6 to 10 points.
I don't
on
know
the
that
season.
Stamkos. I don't know that Stamkos is the reason for that.
All right, you heard it here, folks. My brother thinks Stamkos stinks, and the Predators are the most overrated team in history. All right,
there you go.
All right, we bring it to you live. All right, let's go down to the Metro, shittiest, crappiest division, along with the Pacific. The Blue Jackets are number 8. That's, super obvious, especially now. I don't think they're going to be able to fill in that, even with the cap space, they're going to be able to fill in that scoring for Goodrow, even though he wasn't that great. As of late, I actually have the Flyers dropping to number 7. I think Torts already kind of did his thing there to sabotage a little bit, and that's just it's gonna come crashing down next year, I think. I don't think those guys are gonna keep responding to him. So I had them on number 7. At number 6, I have the Penguins because they stink. They're old, and Dubas is still there doing his thing, signing a bunch of whatever players and
Dubas hater.
refusing to who doesn't hate Dubas, refusing to adjust and actually make a bold move, but obviously he's not going to trade Crosby. And
is it his face? I wonder why people hate Dubas. Is it just because of how he acts?
Well, it's how he's very cocky for a young guy, and he was given a chance in Toronto, and then he kind of did the thing, he did the thing there at the end where he was like, well, he wanted the power, which is fine, but the way he did it was very shady and kind of left them hanging.
Yeah.
Which is not very professional, and I'm not one of those people if you gotta go, you gotta go and do your thing. But the way he did it was very shady, and it was not good. But anyway, the Penguins are there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're worse. They're not gonna be worse because Crosby's still gonna be good, but I don't know about Letang and Malkin are gonna bring the same thing. So I have Pittsburgh at number 6. At number 5, I have the Capitals. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. It was very tricky between them and the Islanders. I wouldn't be surprised if the Capitals make it like they did last year and the Islanders actually fall out, because I do have the Devils in there, of course. But I'm gonna say that the Capitals are just not gonna be able to score a lot more than they did last year, and that's kind of what did them in. But if they still play the same defense and the goaltending is good, they can definitely sneak in there. But I have them at number 5. At number 4, I have the Islanders. That's the last wild card team. Um, they could miss just as easily. I mean, they got in there in third place by a miracle because the whole division stunk. Um, but I think they'll finish at number 4 there. And then my top 3, I have the Devils on number 3. I don't think they're gonna win the division like a lot of people are saying. I think you cannot underestimate the Hurricanes or even the Rangers in the regular season. I thought about the Rangers maybe falling off a bit, but they still got Shesterkin, so that's not gonna happen. They'll be top 2 in that division, but I have them at number 3, the Devils, and then I have the Hurricanes at number 2, and I have the Rangers winning the division as they did last year.
Mine is slightly different. Gonna say that I mean obviously the Blue Jackets. I'm not gonna get into that. It's obvious. Number 7, I'm with you, Flyers. I think that they're gonna drop off. I look at the roster. I'm just not sold on it, and yeah, all the drama with the coach. I think we'll catch up, and they overachieved. Um, I have I do have the Penguins, I guess, too. So far, I guess same as you, dropping down their age and all of that. And they just need to rebuild at this point. Where I differ is I do have the Islanders at 5.
Yeah.
Not a fan. I think the Patrick Roy and Duclair thing, it ain't gonna work out. I think they're very opposite personalities.
Yeah.
And I think the Patrick Roy thing can get old real quick, and that team is just,
Yeah, it's very average. Yeah.
I'm not sold on it. And again, I've always been high on the Caps, so that's on the West is Utah that I'm sort of banking on. Here it's the Caps that I think will actually improve a little bit offensively, and that will help them finish 4th again. And then I have the Devils finishing 3rd, like you do. I think people are overhyping them. I think they'll be good, but I don't think that they're going to go, to 112 points all of a sudden. And then I have the Rangers 2nd, and I have Carolina 1st, man. I know everybody's down on Carolina. And I think Brendan Moore getting the extension, Jarvis coming back, adding a little bit of more offensive power on the defense. They have been very focused on defensive hockey. They needed a bit more movement. They've really struggled to score in the playoffs. I think that adding Sean Walker and Gus Despair, not the solid, the more reliable guys on defense, but I think they can bring some of what they need, which is puck movement out of the back, a little bit more mobility, and I think it's some depth. So I don't think the team is as bad as people make it out to be. If Anderson can stay healthy and Kochetkov can take off, I think that they'll be fine.
Yeah,
so I actually have them reclaiming the conference.
Yeah, I think Kochetkov is the key there for me. They really need solid goaltending, but I trust the coach in the system, and they're going to get 105 to 110 points easily. So I think they could win the division very easily if the Rangers kind of fall off a little bit, which could be expected. It's normal.
Yeah, let's get into the only division that matters.
All right, let's get into the best division in the league. All right. Now, I was going to have the Leafs at number 8, but I'm kidding. All right. Let's see. Let me go over my list real quick again.
You can do reading on a podcast. Like that's Dan Levitar taught you that. You can read on a podcast, bro.
Number 6. All right. So at number 8, I have the Buffalo Sabres. I think they always make a second half of the season push. I don't think they're there yet. I don't think they've made the moves to actually trend upwards like the Senators did with Olmark, for example. I think that the Sabres are going to be 8th just by default. I think the Canadians take a step up. I think they'll be 7. I think that's fair to say. They did improve. They might surprise a little bit, maybe move up to 5 or 6, but I have them at 7. At 6, I have the Detroit Red Wings. I don't think you disagree there. Maybe you have them at 5, but I think that they had 91 points last year. You saw the defense just doesn't hold up. They lost a couple of key pieces. I don't see them improving at all. The goaltending situation is bad. So they're dropping down. Then, of course, I don't have this team making the playoffs yet, but I do have the Senators at 5, which means my top 4 is going to be the same as it was last year, just different order. But I don't think the Senators are going to be there unless Allmark just plays out of his mind. That defense is bad, bad, bad. They need a good system. They might need another year or two ish to really get there and actually make a run. I do think that if they make the playoffs, they could win a couple rounds because they do have that grit. But I don't know that that defense is going to hold up. All right, now to the nitty gritty. The top 4. This is very tough. Last year, Tampa was a wild card team. Leeds were third. Boston was second. Florida was first. So my first wildcard team is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think that they'll drop off that much. I do think the coaching change is going to change the style a little bit. They might try to play a bit more defensive, and that's just not the fit that you have there. The issue with that team is that you have players that don't fit a playoff type team. So when you have Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, it's just tough to change that. I don't see how Brewer is going to come in and just make Nylander be this forward checking guy or be responsible on defense and not cheat. I mean, obviously he could do that, but I don't know if it's going to work. Marner's going to do his thing. Austin Matthews is going to have a good season. I don't think he's going to score 69 goals. He might score 50, I think, if he has a good year. It's hard to do that every single year. So I don't see that like trending up or staying around the same. So once you lose that, I think you just drop a few points in the standing. So to me, it's clear that the Leafs are going to be that 4th team in the Atlantic, in the wild card. At number 3, I had the Tampa Bay Lightning. I thought about putting them at number 2 because I thought maybe the Panthers or Bruins will fall off a little bit. But I have the Lightning. They're still going to make it. Vasilevsky should rebound. Their power play is still good enough to get him there. Last year, they took their foot off the gas, man. It felt even in that matchup with the Panthers, they didn't play like the Lightning at all. So they kind of need that spark back, and I think they'll get it. They add a Gensel. I think they'll be fine. They replaced Stamkos very well, I think. So that's number 3 for me. At number 2, I do have the Florida Panthers. And this is contingent on Swayman extending, of course, which I think he will. With the Bruins at number 1, I think Swayman takes a step forward during the season. The system works. It's a very good defensive system. I don't know that they'll be able to score, but the only reason they dropped off last year was at the very end. They kind of took their foot off the gas, I think, to face the Leafs in the playoffs. The Boston Bruins did. And the Panthers kind of took the division by default. I don't think Maurice or the team cares to win the division, but it actually paid off because they got home field, home court advantage or whatever you call it, home ice advantage in the playoffs, and it paid off in the finals having a game 7 at home. So I do think that kind of matters. I just don't think the Panthers care that much. So I have the Bruins winning, Panthers 2nd, Tampa 3rd, and the Leafs making the playoffs. Not that crazy.
Not that good either. So
it's the best list on the planet.
Yeah, Sabres last. Their roster, like Jason Zucker, Jack Quinn, some of these guys in the top 9, McLeod, I don't know. I'm just not so on the roster. The defense, I've said it before, the defense is mostly offense, but they don't have a lot of good defenders back there, a lot of young guys, a lot of injuries. They gotta figure something out. And they brought back this guy, right? Lindy Ruff. I don't know what they're doing. The Canadians 7th. I think I'm still not sold on them defensively. They're a little bit better, but the Patrick line, I think, could go either way. Not the most defensive team up front. 7th for them. Like you, I'm a little bit down on the Red Wings, so I'll keep them at 6. I know some people are high on them. Just not sold on the team construction. Whatever's happening there, all the drama now with Raymond, and they haven't even signed Jonathan Berggren. But this is where things get interesting for me. I have the Tampa Bay Lightning 5th. I gonna go out there because this is you can't you have to be brave, man. You have to be bold. See, you're making safe picks.
You're way too high on the Senators, man.
Well, it's a chance. I'm taking chances, but it's less about being high on the Senators. I'm down on the Lightning. Their roster is not as good as people think. They have Cam Atkinson in the top six right
What?
now.
Dude,
Dude, look at
Braden
their
Point. They
roster.
still have Sorelli. Braden Point,
Yeah, but
McCall,
look,
Just Hagel,
listen.
Kucherov, Gensel.
We're
That
talking about
offense is going to be good.
we're talking about let me look it up. We talk about lines.
Vaseline.
They have a good first line that won't play a lot of difference with Kucherov and Getzo on it. Cam Atkinson, look at Cam Atkinson. He's 35 and look what he did with Flyers last year. Right now he's projected as the right winger on the second line. They have Connor Sherry and Isamon on the third line, two guys that I think are really fourth liners. Um, I'm just not sold on their guys. And then
Missing the playoffs.
Darren Radish is just not that good. Like the guy was kind of an AHLer until very recently. Ryan McDonough's old as hell. Victor Hedman is old as hell. Perbix was there already. J.J. Moser's a nice addition, but like these guys got eaten up by the Panthers, bro. I think they're going to struggle defensively a lot. I think offensively the chemistry is going to be off. I They struggled already in the regular season last year, and they were really bad defensively at 5-5. I think that's not going to change. I have them potentially missing the playoffs at fifth. I am going to go with the Senators. I think maybe they can turn it around. I'm not sold on Travis Green as a coach, but anytime there's a coaching change, they might get a bump. They have made some moves. They have a better goaltender. That's a team that everybody keeps waiting year after year to just take that sort of leap. And last year they had a dreadful start. So I just think that they're going to figure it out and finish maybe as a wild card or in fourth. Third, I have the Panthers.
You're a hater, man.
I think that they're going to be in a bit of a daze after the cup. I think regular season will be tricky. I think there might be some injuries. I think it's normal. They have some new guys, young guys coming in. That's going to take a little while to adapt and figure it out. I don't know that the Panthers have always been the best regular season team with this core. I mean, last year they went on a couple of really great runs that had allowed them to stay on top. And Bruins kind of tanked at the end to get the Leafs, I think. But I have them third. I'm not saying they're going to finish with under 100 points. I think it'll be a little bit above that, but I have them third. I have the Leafs second. I do think they'll get a bump in the regular season. They're going to try harder than usual. And then in the playoffs, that's maybe where it gets into a different story. Also, if they finish second and third, I think the Leafs and Panthers might play each other in the first round. That would be amazing. And then I have the Bruins winning again because I know people shit on the Zadorov and Lindholm signings, but again, I still think they got better. They have some young guys, Voitrys or whatever, and Laura and stuff. I think they're coming up and swimming. And I think their goaltending situation it's better than people think with the backup. So I don't think Korpisalo is as bad as he's not a starter, but I don't think he's as bad as people made him out to be. And Ottawa couldn't defend. So yeah, man, that's what I got. So to me, it's just the Panthers and the Lightning that are switched off, and I guess the Senators just hoping for a little mix of a different team in there.
Yeah, no, the Panthers finishing third is fine. I mean, it's overstated. Like it's the difference in points is usually a couple of points between second and third or first and second, whatever. So it's not like a huge deal. It's usually like overtime losses or whatever the case may be. They get you there, and the Bruins had a ton of those. So overtime losses and wins.
I do want to see a Leafs Panthers playoff matchup this year. I would love to see it just for the drama.
Yeah, I think that's why I do want the Lightning to make it. But if it's a center, it's fine. But those four teams battling each other, regardless of the matchup, is always interesting because you're gonna get at least one of Panthers leaves or Boston leaves or Tampa leaves, and that's always fun. There's history there already with Boston and Tampa, and now with the Panthers. And Panther Bruins it's gonna be physical. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, not many changes. Just changes. Honestly, we didn't really take any risk or say anything crazy on our standings, which we probably should have. Probably the most boring standings prediction, but all right, so let's get to the conference finals and our predictions there. Let's go ahead and start again with the West and then with the East. So go ahead and get us started.
Wes, I'm gonna have the Avalanche in Vegas, not having a strong regular seasons as other teams, but turning it around in the playoffs. I think they bounce back. And then on the East, I'll have, you know, this is tough, but I'm going to have the Bruins with one last gasp and the Hurricanes. So those are my pick.
Oh, Bruins and Hurricanes, huh? So you had the Bruins beating Panthers, Leafs, and possibly Lightning. Okay. Um, the West, I have the same. I have the Avs and Vegas. I do have Colorado advancing there to the finals, and in the East, I have I have the Panthers.
Better not say the Devils just to mess with me.
I had the Panthers and the Hurricanes as a rematch, and I think that the Hurricanes go through. I have the Panthers getting to the finals again. I don't I don't think there's enough in the East to definitely, to say that the Panthers are going to lose. I think last year in the playoffs we thought that they would probably lose in the second round just because we didn't see what they were capable of. I think the way that they beat the Bruins, they dismantled the Lightning, even though the games were close. Of course, it's the playoffs, and then the way that they beat the Bruins was very decisive, considering how Swayman played. That could have easily been a sweep with any other goalie that wasn't Shesterkin or Swayman. And then they were down to the Rangers 2-1, right? And once they won that second game was 2-2, the series was over. Um, I think they're capable. It might be tougher. They might have to go to a couple of game sevens against the Bruins and possibly the Leafs. But I think they're highly capable. I don't think it's a hot take to say the Panthers make the finals again. It's just that in history it doesn't really happen that way. But considering what you said earlier, where that first finals in 2023 was kind of a fluke, where a lot of things went right for the team. Um, I wouldn't even count that. They should have been eliminated in the first round. So, back to back champs is not out of the question, but they get to the finals against Colorado. Um, but yeah, who do you have in the finals? I don't think you mentioned it.
No, I have Carolina getting through Bruins and I have Avalanche getting through Vegas. So I have, yeah, similar but different. I do have the Hurricanes facing the Avalanche in the finals.
That'll be an interesting final, right? Those are considered small markets, right? I think Colorado's consider a small market
I don't know.
in the
Yeah,
NHL,
not
kind of
really.
middle
I
of the
mean, they have a
pack.
big history. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Colorado could beat the Panthers. I think they're extremely capable, especially if it's Bobrovsky again, which I think will be. Um, I don't see how the Panthers win that final, but I do have them in there. Who do you
Yeah,
have win?
I have Carolina winning. I
Really,
think their
the whole
two way.
thing.
I think their depth and two-way play gets them through against a team like Colorado, who ultimately does have some deficiencies.
Yeah, and they've been there so many years now in a row.
And
Um,
Carolina's experience, I haven't been there, and a lot of the young guys really accumulating all this experience. And again, people forget that they kind of outplayed the Rangers in their series. They kind of outplayed the Panthers in their series. So um, I don't know. I feel like some of their top guys might be on the cusp of going on a run. So that's kind of what I'm banking on. Just not trying to fall for the easy like expected teams, but I think on the surface, Carolina has dropped, but I think the advanced metrics may not be as down on them as other people are. So,
yeah, I don't know. They're a very very good team, very capable of getting to the finals. I would even go further and say that from the East, getting to the finals, I would only have the Canes, the Panthers, and the Bruins as really capable of doing that. I think the Rangers can get through. I don't think the Rangers can get through the conference finals if they get there. whoever they get, whether it's Boston or Panthers again. I don't think they can beat those teams.
I think boy, Adam Fox can win a cup.
Well, Adam Fox is really good on both ends. Like
Yeah, I know.
he is like a top 3 defender in the league.
I
But
mean, the
I think
issues Panarin and the
yeah,
issues Zibanejad against the Panthers. I
yeah,
am again. We hadn't faced the Rangers before in the
yeah.
playoffs. What I saw from Zibanejad Rangers fans is
It
that
was really bad,
he
man.
was terrified out there, bro.
Dude, he's just like talk about Stamkos in the power play. Like that's all. That's it. That's basically what he gives you. 5-on-5, he disappears, and he's not a small guy. Like that was very weird. And Panarin too. Like he's afraid of physicality, and he couldn't get the passes out. It's the playoffs, man. It just doesn't work.
Panarin is Marner, bro. They're the
Yeah,
Spider-Man meme.
yeah. So I would say that those 3 teams are probably gonna come out of the East. Matter of fact, book it. All right, we'll end it there, guys. We'll have more content out this week as well, and we're just waiting for camp to start in preseason so we can get into it a bit more and go from there. So we'll catch you all in a couple of days with another episode. Thank you for watching. If you got this far, please subscribe. Leave us any comments where you disagree with our list or what you would do different, and who you have winning the cup ultimately. Go Panthers. See you all next week.